Secretary, please join us, and let's give a very warm hand to Secretary Mabus.
Roger, thank you so much, and thank y'all all for being here in this beautiful building, LEED Platinum, I believe. Tom Hicks is here with me. Tom is the Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy for Management, but he, in a previous life, was Vice President for LEED for the Green Building Council. Tom originally came to Navy and worked only on energy, but he just kept doing such a good job that we kept punishing him and promoting him until now he runs the entire management of the 900,000 people and $170 billion budget for the Department of the Navy. Roger, I would love to stay as Secretary, but there are not many sure things in politics, but one of them is that come January 2017, regardless of who wins, I'm going to be looking for a job. And if I make it until September, I will be the 5th longest serving out of 75. And nobody here realizes quite what an accomplishment that is. This is the longest I've ever had a job in my life. I mean, I was in politics, 4 years, go find something else to do. Or as one of my friends said, I quit politics for illness and exhaustion. The voters got sick and tired of me. But the champion Secretary of the Navy, the one that served the longest, is Josephus Daniels. He was Secretary exactly 100 years ago. Woodrow Wilson was the president. He was Secretary during World War I. He had an assistant secretary named Franklin Roosevelt during that time. And Josephus Daniels came in the day that Woodrow Wilson came in and left the day that Wilson left, 8 years. The runner-up is Gideon Welles, Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of the Navy, who was 2 days short of that. Now, you suspect Josephus knew that record and stayed on for those extra 2 days. Because of the confirmation process, nobody's going to match that. But I will be the longest-serving secretary since World War II, since we went to the new system of the Department of Defense. So it's a great job. It is a great job. Let me do this. I'd like to talk to y'all just for a moment about Navy 101. Why do we need a Navy and Marine Corps? What does it do for us? What value does it bring the country? And I'll end with energy, with alternative power. What the Navy and Marine Corps uniquely bring to this country is presence. Being around the globe, around the clock, being in the right place, not just at the right time, but all the time. Being there and meeting whatever comes over the horizon. We deploy as much in peacetime as we do in wartime. There are never permanent homecomings for sailors or Marines. We respond to whatever crises there are, and we give our leaders options. Whatever the president decides to do, that president will have options across a broad spectrum, and it ranges everything from high-end combat to irregular warfare to humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, to partnership engagement. And usually, almost always, the same people, the same platforms do all these things. So the way we get that presence, the way I've tried to organize my thinking about the Department of the Navy is through 4 fundamentals: people, platforms, partnerships, and power. People are sailors and Marines and the civilians in the Department of the Navy. We've got the best force we've ever had. We've stressed them a lot. We expect them to do a great job day after day after day. Our deployments have gotten much longer, and the things that they face have gotten far more uncertain. We're trying to do several things with that force. One is, 3 weeks ago at Annapolis, I made a speech about some changes we're making, and I think they're pretty dramatic changes in the way we manage that force. We're going to try to promote much more on merit and less on time, less on year group. We're going to, I've proposed dramatically increasing the amount of paid maternity leave. We don't have enough women in the Navy or the Marine Corps, and we lose too many at the 8 to 12 year mark. We ought to do better than that. The military ought to be an easier place to be, an easier place to balance work and family. And so we've gone to something called, and we've asked Congress to dramatically expand it, the Career Intermission Program, which says that you can take up to 3 years off to do anything. Have a family, look after an aging parent. Go do something else that will be of value to you. And then when you come back in, it shouldn't hurt your career. You'll go back to competing against people who are 3 years earlier in the system. We're doing small things like starting childcare 2 hours earlier and ending it 2 hours later, so that people won't have to make a decision on what they're going to be late for, their job or childcare. The second thing we're doing is we've got this incredibly innovative force, great ideas. But there wasn't a way to get some of these ideas fleet-wide. You'd have it on individual ships, you'd have it on individual bases, you'd have it in little pockets here or there. So we started a thing called Task Force Innovation, which is sort of an oxymoron for a task force on making a huge bureaucracy innovative. But one of the things we're doing is crowdsourcing. We've got a website, and if you're a sailor or Marine, you've got an idea of how you can do your job better or how we can do our jobs better. Type it in on the website. We'll debate it. And things will pop up to me and the Chief of Naval Operations. And we've started to fund a lot of these things now. And the way this came about was, I'll talk about this more when I get to partnerships, but I do just hundreds and hundreds of all-hands calls. All the sailors, all the Marines from a certain ship or base. And if you'll listen to the questions, they'll tell you what their concerns are. And this is a very small thing, but I started getting questions on ships. Why can't we wear our ball caps ashore with the ship's name on it? Why can't we wear our ball caps on the ship except at certain times? And my response was, you can't? Really? So I came back to D.C., I asked the CNO, I said, how come sailors can't wear their ball caps ashore? And he goes, they can't? And so somebody in the bowels of the bureaucracy had decided it didn't look right to have sailors wearing their ball caps, and so this order went out. So CNO and I drafted a 2-sentence order. You can wear your ball caps. That has done more for morale than almost any single thing we've done in the last couple of years. Second, platforms. Quantity has a quality all its own. On 9/11/2001, the U.S. Navy had 316 ships. By 2008, after one of the great military buildups in our history, we were down to 278 ships. In the 5 years before I became secretary, the Navy put 27 ships under contract. That was not enough to keep the fleet from getting smaller. It was also not enough to keep our shipyards going. In the first 5 years I have been secretary, we have put 70 ships under contract with a smaller top line. And we've done it just by using very plain business practices. Competition, fixed price contracts, multi-year buys, things like that. because you've got to have those big gray hulls on the horizon. And we haven't done it at the expense of aircraft. We're also buying 40% more aircraft than we did before. The main way we've done it, I tell people that my father was maybe the cheapest person who's ever lived on this earth. I am his son. And we just drive a hard bargain. We know what things should cost, and we drive to that number. Third is partnerships. And there are three types of partnerships. First is the international things that I do and that others in Navy and Marines do. I travel a lot. I've been 1,050,000 air miles to 132 different countries and territories. Now, the main reason I go is to see sailors and Marines where they are, where they're forward deployed, instead of staying in the Pentagon on the off chance they may drop by and see me. The other reason, though, is to meet with our partners, our friends, our allies around the world to talk about the training we're doing, the exercises we're doing, the operations we're doing together, so that in times of relative calm, we get to know each other. We get to know how we each operate. Because you can surge people, you can surge equipment. What you cannot surge is trust. The second type of partnership is with industry. We don't build the things that we use. So we have to have that close working relationship. And the third is with the American people. The Navy and Marine Corps are America's away team. We never have a home game. When we're doing our job, we're usually a long, long way from home. And there's a danger in a democracy that the people being protected will become separated from the people doing the protecting. And so making the case for Navy and Marines, making the case of why the jobs we give them are so hard and why they're so good at it. Now, the founders knew this. In the Constitution, Article 1, it says that Congress has the ability to raise an army, but they are directed to maintain a navy. And in that not so subtle difference, or distinction, is the difference. One head of Navy from Asia told me that the difference in soldiers and sailors are that soldiers looked at maps. They looked down. They saw boundaries. They saw obstacles. Sailors look out. They don't see any boundaries. They don't see any lines. They see the horizon. And they want to see what's coming next. And finally, power, energy. If you want to see how energy can be used as a weapon, just look at what Russia did in Crimea. Look what they're doing in Ukraine. Look what they're doing to Europe. One of the things that I was determined is that it wasn't going to be used as a weapon against us. And to Roger's point, this is a national security thing. It's a strategic thing, and it's a tactical thing. And the only correction I'll make is that our goal is 50% non-fossil fuel sources by 2020. Afloat and ashore. And let me give you a little update. The President, in his 2011 State of the Union, said that Navy would have 1 gigawatt of renewable resources, which is about 50%, at our bases on shore by no later than 2020. Now, we're a seagoing service, but we also own 3.5 million acres of land. We have 117,000 buildings. So we're on shore too. By the end of this year, 2015, we'll be at 50% renewable energy on our basis. We're 5 years early. And we'll be there on the ocean with our ships and our aircraft by 2020. On shore, we're doing it through public-private partnerships. We do offtake contracts. We give land. We allow alternative sources to do land. And we're doing it for one reason. We're doing all this for one reason. That's to make us better warfighters. There are some great side effects. We're better stewards of the environment, lower carbon footprint, things like that. But that's not the prime reason we're doing it. It makes us better at what we do. Afloat, we've demonstrated the Great Green Fleet in sort of homage to Theodore Roosevelt's Great White Fleet. Every ship in the Great Green Fleet, the carrier was nuclear. Every other ship was sailing on a blend of biofuels and normal marine diesel. And every aircraft, 50-50 blend of biofuels and avgas. We're going to deploy the Great Green Fleet next year on a normal 8 or 9 month deployment, doing the same sorts of things, running these aircraft and ships on a blend. And we don't have many requirements for biofuels, but we do have some. One is that they've got to be a drop-in fuel. We're not changing our engines. We got too many of them. We're not even changing the settings. It's got to be, the engine can't notice the difference. Two is, we won't buy anything that takes land out of food production. So that we're looking at second, third generation biofuels. And third is, it's got to be cost competitive with fossil fuels. And so far, even with the dramatic plunge in the prices of oil, we're getting there. If you look at the price of oil, and I was the ambassador to Saudi Arabia, as Roger said, the trend line goes in one direction. It's going up. Now, there are ups and downs around that trend line. But my first few years in this job, I was presented with several $1 billion of unfunded fuel price increases. And there are not many places, even in the Pentagon, to go get a couple of $1 billion. Hard as that is to believe. We train less, or steam less, or fly less. Or if the bill gets too big, we buy less of platforms because we can't afford to fuel them. So that's why we're doing it. And as Roger said, when you think of United States Marines, the first thing you think about is probably not ardent environmentalist. I actually helped blow up stuff with the SEALs this past weekend. I didn't just watch. But as one of my senior Marine aides, previous senior Marine aides said, "Sir, we're Marines. We like to blow up stuff." But they have embraced it because of this cost in lives more than any other service. At the height of the fighting in Afghanistan, we sent solar blankets to one battalion, and these were then about that big. You used them to power your radios, GPSs, things like that. It saved a company of Marines 700 pounds in batteries, and they didn't have to be resupplied. We've got SEAL teams that are getting close to net zero in terms of energy and water. They use alternative fuel, alternative energy to purify water, so they can stay out a very, very long time without having to be resupplied. One of the things that a commander of one of these SEAL teams told me, he said, the other advantage is when you turn off the generator, you can hear. You can hear when the bad guys are trying to sneak up on us. And you don't have a generator going saying, "Yo, here's where we are." Finally, people ask, okay, why is the Navy doing this? Why is it Navy? There's one question I got. You're the Secretary of the Navy. You're not Secretary of Energy. So why are you doing this? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is Navy has always been at the forefront of energy change. We went from sail to coal, middle of the 19th century, coal to oil, the early 20th century, and we pioneered the use of nuclear. And every single time, there were folks that were saying, this can't work. You're trading one thing that's free, the air, for another that costs money, coal. Or we've got all these coaling stations set up around the world. You're going to walk away from that infrastructure to go to oil? Or there's no way you can make a nuclear reactor small enough or safe enough to put in a submarine. No way. Well, every single time, these naysayers have been wrong. And they're wrong this time, too. The other reason we're doing it is to make us better warfighters, but we're pretty big. We can bring a market. We can change the way people get energy. And that's what we're beginning to see happen. And if you read stuff like the tipping point and chaos theory and things like that, systems don't change gradually. They change very fast. You'll have equilibrium and then a change. And I think that's where we are in terms of energy use. And I'll end with a quote from a Saudi. I used to go see the oil minister in Saudi Arabia every 2 weeks or so. And my first question was always the same, what's the price of oil going to do? And he would say, always the same, it could either go up or it could go down. And so it was sort of like playing the national anthem before a ball game. It's something you do, but it doesn't have any impact on the outcome. The quote is from a former Saudi oil minister, Zaki Yamani, who said that the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. It ended because we invented something better. That's what's happening now. We're inventing something better. So from the Navy, Semper Fortis, always courageous. And from the Marines, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Thank y'all.